Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the incredible history of the Ahom Dynasty. We're going to explore both the military shield that protected them and the rich cultural fabric that really defined who they were. It's a fascinating look at a 600-year empire from India's northeast that somehow defeated one of the world's largest armies while simultaneously cultivating an incredibly vibrant, intricate society.
All right, let's jump right into the heat of things. My uncle is not greater than my country. That is a real legendary quote from Ahom Commander-in-Chief Lachit Borphukan. Historical records tell us he actually executed his own uncle. And why? Because his uncle neglected to build an essential earthen defense wall overnight. Honestly, that single ruthless act tells you everything you need to know about the fierce dedication and the absolute discipline that kept the Ahom kingdom alive.
To really wrap our heads around this dynasty, we're going to hit 4 key areas today: the Battle of Saraighat, mastering defense and strategy, the Ahom social fabric, and finally, a legacy written in bronze. Let's get into it. Part 1, the Battle of Saraighat. This was truly a riverine last stand against the Mughals.
So, looking at how this conflict escalated, it was a rough road. After some early wins recapturing Guwahati and the Itakuli fort in 1667, the Ahoms suffered a devastating blow at the Battle of Alaboy in 1669. They lost a staggering 10,000 soldiers. But here's the crucial takeaway. That brutal defeat didn't break them. Instead, it essentially forged Lachit Borphukan's brilliant strategies for the ultimate showdown that would happen in 1671.
Now, just imagine this threat pulling up to your shores. The Mughals, led by Ram Singh I, rolled in with a massive force of 70,000 soldiers and 40 ships, each heavily armed with 16 cannons. The Ahoms were vastly outnumbered and seriously outgunned. Facing a force like that on an open field, it would have been absolute suicide. They knew they had to change the rules of the game.
So, what does Lachit do? He completely flips the script. He brilliantly forces the Mughals into this tight naval bottleneck on the Brahmaputra River, creating what we can call the Saraighat Triangle. By drawing these massive enemy ships into this highly restricted space between the Kamakya Temple, the Vishnu Temple, and the Itakuli fort walls, he completely neutralized the Mughal artillery advantage. Using their smaller, way faster boats, the Ahoms literally ran circles around the enemy, eliminating 4,000 soldiers and pulling off a decisive, historic victory.
Moving on to Part 2, mastering defense and strategy. Let's take a second to compare the Ahoms and the Marathas.
Both of these absolute powerhouses successfully challenged the massive Mughal Empire by weaponizing their own backyards. While the Marathas brilliantly used the hilly Deccan Plateau to their advantage, the Ahoms turned the Brahmaputra River and its surrounding valley into their own personal fortress. They even had a dedicated naval officer, the Pani Pukan, who essentially acted as the admiral of the river.
Both empires also leaned heavily into specialized guerrilla warfare. The Ahoms used a technique called Daga Judo, where highly trained foot soldiers, known as pikes, used the local terrain to ambush much larger armies. Similarly, the Marathas used Gani Mikava up in the hills. They both fundamentally understood that when you're up against a massive, well-equipped army, wit and speed are way more lethal than sheer numbers.
And when it came to defense, well, both groups basically weaponized nature. The Ahoms reinforced their earthen walls called gar by planting kutuha, which is this incredibly dense, thorny bamboo that acted as a natural, impenetrable fence. The Marathas did something strikingly similar, utilizing the thorny cactus plants naturally available around their stone mountain forts. They literally made their strongholds absolute nightmares for anyone trying to infiltrate.
All right, Part 3, the Ahom social fabric, or what we can call the loom of the dynasty.
Switching gears a bit, according to the Baranjis, which are the historical chronicles of the Ahoms, clothing wasn't just about staying warm. It was a primary marker of cultural identity, artistic taste, and social status. A person's clothing and ornaments instantly communicated their rank, their age, and their identity within the kingdom. You were, quite literally, wearing your social status. Historical records show us that women's clothing in particular was incredibly diverse and packed with symbolism. Women frequently wove and cut their garments right at home, using luxurious, native materials like muga and Erie silk. This kind of craftsmanship was a point of immense pride, keeping their cultural continuity strong generation after generation. Take the riha, for example. This was a highly significant garment reserved for deeply auspicious events like weddings or prayers at the Namgar. Then you have the wide blouse, or su.
The specific colors a woman wore for her su definitely weren't random. They communicated her age and marital status. Bright patterns were typically for the youth, while older women traditionally opted for whites.
And the men's wardrobes? Just as complex and strictly codified. You had the churia, or duti, which signified dignity, especially when it was woven in silk or dyed red for religious rituals. There was the tangali, a waist belt deeply tied to the bihu dance, and the pagori, a turban worn by commoners representing heritage. But take special note of the gamosa. This white cloth with bold red borders, known as unchu, literally represented the strength of the Ahom dynasty itself, while also serving as a profound symbol of hospitality.
Which brings us to part 4, a legacy written in bronze. Let's look at the modern memory of Lachit Borphukan.
Now, looking at his modern legacy, historians point out a pretty fascinating debate. Pretty much everyone universally celebrates Lachit Borphukan as a secular, unifying hero who fought tooth and nail for regional autonomy. However, some academic sources point out that modern political narratives occasionally cast him in communal or religious terms. It really just reflects the complex and sometimes contested reality of how historical memory gets utilized in the present day.
But whatever the debate, his monumental status today is absolutely undeniable. Seriously, in 2024, they unveiled a massive 125-foot bronze statue of valor dedicated to Lachit Borphukan in Jorhat. It literally cements his physical legacy right onto the landscape.
And just to put his enduring legacy into perspective, the year 2026 actually marks the 403rd birth anniversary of this legendary commander. The fact that we are still talking about him over 4 centuries later is a massive testament to how his memory has endured.
And his tactical genius is still actively revered today. Every single year on November 24th, he's honored with Lachit Divas. The National Defense Academy in India awards its best graduating military cadet a gold medal in his name. And recently, reflecting those modern strategic echoes, the Indian Army established the new Lachit Borphukan military station in Dhubri, Assam, guarding India's eastern frontier.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. How does the spirit of a 17th century commander, a man who quite literally prioritized his country's survival over his own family's lives, continue to weave the cultural, military, and political fabric of a region today? It really shows us that history isn't just a bunch of facts in the past. It's the loom upon which our present is still being woven. Thanks for hanging out and joining me on this deep dive.